Imagine if a single idea had the power to quietly change the direction of your entire life. Not overnight, not through luck, but through a series of simple principles that have guided some of the most determined minds in history. For centuries, people have searched for the hidden formula behind success. What allows certain individuals to rise above their circumstances while others remain trapped in doubt? Why do some people transform ordinary beginnings into extraordinary lives? And what separates those who only dream from those who turn their dreams into reality? The answer is rarely found in talent alone. It is not reserved for the wealthy, and it does not belong to a privileged few. Instead, it lives in the way a person thinks, in the habits they build, in the courage they show when the path becomes difficult, and in the quiet decision to continue moving forward when most people would stop. Throughout history, people like Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, and Andrew Carnegie began with little more than an idea and an unwavering determination to see it through. They faced failure, they faced doubt, they faced moments when success seemed impossibly far away, yet they continued, because they understood something that many people overlook. Success is not a single moment, it is a process built on persistence, on discipline, on character, on the courage to believe in possibilities long before the world can see them. In the next few hours, you are about to explore a journey through the principles that have shaped some of the most remarkable achievements in human history. Principles that reveal how persistence overcomes failure, how vision shapes the future, how belief transforms limitations into opportunity, and how ordinary individuals build extraordinary lives through the power of consistent growth. These ideas are not distant theories, they are living lessons drawn from real experiences, real struggles, and real victories. And as you listen, you may begin to recognize something surprising. The same potential that existed in the minds of great innovators and leaders exists within you, because the distance between the life you live today and the life you imagine is often smaller than it appears. Sometimes, all it takes is a shift in perspective, a deeper understanding, and the willingness to take one step forward. So stay with this journey, because somewhere within these ideas, you may discover a principle that changes the way you see your future forever.
Part 1. The Man Who Creates His Opportunity. There is a question that quietly follows every human life. A question that appears in moments of doubt, in moments of failure, and sometimes even in moments of success. Why do some people rise above circumstances that seem impossible, while others remain trapped in lives far smaller than their potential? History offers thousands of answers, yet all of them seem to point toward one simple truth. The difference between those who move forward and those who remain behind is rarely intelligence, it is rarely privilege, and it is almost never luck. The real difference lies in something far more powerful, a force that lives quietly within the human mind, the force of determination. Throughout history, the world has watched ordinary individuals step forward and accomplish things that once seemed impossible. They were not always the most educated, they were not always the most talented, but they possessed something that transformed their lives. They understood how to recognize opportunity, and more importantly, how to create it. Many people spend their lives waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for someone to give them a chance, waiting for circumstances to change. But the great individuals of history rarely waited for opportunity to appear. Instead, they stepped forward and created it. Consider the young man who looked across the frozen peaks of the Alps and asked a simple question. The mountains seemed impossible to cross,
Experienced engineers warned that the task could not be done. The terrain was too dangerous, the conditions were too severe. But the young commander who stood before them did not ask whether it was easy. He asked only one question: is it possible? When the engineers hesitated and replied that perhaps it might be possible, though extremely difficult, the young leader gave a simple command: forward. That man was Napoleon Bonaparte, and what followed became one of the most extraordinary military achievements in history. Thousands of soldiers crossed terrain that many believed could never be crossed. Heavy artillery was dragged through icy mountain passes. Supplies were carried across cliffs and frozen valleys. And when the army finally descended from the mountains, they appeared where the enemy least expected them. The impossible had become reality. What made the difference? Not luck, not circumstance, but the decision to act when others hesitated. The world rarely belongs to those who wait. It belongs to those who move. Again and again, history reveals the same pattern. Opportunities do not always appear in comfortable places. They often arrive disguised as difficulty. They appear in moments when others see only obstacles. They emerge in times when the path forward seems uncertain. Yet the individuals who change the world possess a remarkable ability. They see possibility where others see limitation. Take the story of a young girl who lived in a lonely lighthouse surrounded by the violent waters of the North Sea. Her name was Grace Darling. One stormy night, she was awakened by desperate cries carried through the wind. A ship had been shattered against the rocks. 9 sailors clung to the wreckage, their lives hanging by a fragile thread. The storm was ferocious. The waves were enormous. Her father believed that attempting a rescue would mean certain death. But the young girl refused to accept that nothing could be done. She insisted that they must try. Together, father and daughter pushed their small boat into the raging sea. The wind howled around them. The waves struck their fragile vessel again and again. But with every stroke of the oars, the girl moved closer to the stranded sailors. Strength appeared within her that she had never known before. And against all odds, they reached the wreck. One by one, the sailors were pulled aboard. 9 lives were saved. That night, an ordinary young woman became a symbol of courage throughout England. Why? Because she saw opportunity where others saw danger. Opportunity to act, opportunity to help, opportunity to rise beyond fear. This pattern appears again and again in the lives of extraordinary people. A poor boy in Italy once worked as a kitchen servant in a wealthy household. He spent his days performing the most ordinary tasks: cleaning dishes, carrying supplies, watching from the corners of the room as important guests arrived. One evening, the household prepared for an important dinner. A decorative centerpiece had been ordered from a professional artist, but just hours before the event, the artist delivered terrible news. The sculpture had been ruined. The dinner would have no centerpiece. As the servants worried about what to do, the kitchen boy spoke quietly. "If you allow me, I believe I can make something." The servants laughed. He was only a scullion, a boy who washed dishes. But with nothing to lose, they gave him a chance. The boy took a block of butter and began to sculpt. Within a short time, he had created a magnificent lion. When the guests arrived, they were astonished. They studied the sculpture closely. Who had created such beautiful work? The host himself did not know, and so the young boy was brought into the room. The guests were amazed. The boy was not a trained artist, but they immediately recognized his talent. They offered to pay for his education. That boy later became one of the greatest sculptors in history. His name was Antonio Canova. His opportunity appeared in the most unlikely moment, not in a classroom, not in an art studio, in a kitchen. The lesson is simple. Opportunity does not always arrive with announcements. It rarely introduces itself with ceremony. Instead, it appears quietly, sometimes in the form of a problem, sometimes in the form of responsibility, sometimes in the form of difficulty. But those who learn to recognize it discover something extraordinary. The world is filled with chances waiting to be seized. Every conversation, every challenge, every obstacle, every moment of effort, each one holds the potential to move a life forward. The great tragedy of human life is not failure, it is hesitation. Too many people stand at the edge of opportunity and wait. They wait for more confidence. They wait for better circumstances. They wait for the perfect moment. But the perfect moment rarely arrives. Instead, success belongs to those who act while others hesitate, those who begin while others delay, those who dare while others doubt. And the moment a person begins to act with courage and determination, the world begins to change around them. Because opportunity favors the prepared mind. It favors the person who is ready to step forward when the moment arrives. And perhaps the most powerful truth of all is this: you do not need extraordinary circumstances to build an extraordinary life. You only need the willingness to begin, right where you are, with what you have, because history has proven something again and again. The individuals who change their lives are the ones who decide to move forward, even when the path is uncertain, even when the odds seem impossible. They move forward anyway, and in doing so, they discover something that transforms everything. Opportunity is not something you wait for. Opportunity is something you create.
There is a moment that appears in every human life. A quiet moment. A moment when a person stands at the edge of something new. A new path, a new dream, a new possibility. And in that moment, two voices begin to speak inside the mind. One voice whispers caution. It reminds you of past failures. It reminds you of risks. It reminds you of all the reasons why something might not work. But the other voice is different. It speaks more quietly, but far more powerfully. It asks a single question. What if you tried? What if the future you imagine is actually possible? What if the only thing standing between you and that life is the decision to begin? Most people spend years listening to the first voice. They wait. They hesitate. They postpone their ambitions until the conditions feel perfect. But those who eventually rise above ordinary circumstances discover something remarkable. Success rarely begins with certainty. It begins with courage. The courage to begin before everything is clear. The courage to take the first step even when the entire staircase is hidden in shadow. History is filled with individuals who began their journey with almost nothing. No wealth, no influence, no guarantee that their efforts would succeed. Yet they moved forward anyway. Consider the life of Thomas Edison. Before the world knew his name, he was simply a curious young boy with an endless fascination for ideas. His teachers believed he lacked intelligence. His early experiments often failed. His laboratories were filled with broken devices and unfinished projects. But Edison possessed something far more powerful than immediate success. He possessed persistence. When people asked him how he endured thousands of failed experiments while developing the electric light, he gave an answer that has inspired generations. "I have not failed," he said. "I have simply found thousands of ways that do not work."
What most people call failure, Edison called progress. Each attempt brought him one step closer to discovery. Each mistake carried information that moved him forward. Eventually, after years of effort, his persistence transformed the world. The electric light became one of the greatest inventions in human history. But that invention began with a single decision, the decision to begin. The truth is simple. Every great achievement in history begins with an imperfect start. No inventor begins with perfect knowledge. No entrepreneur begins with complete certainty. No leader begins with universal support. Instead, they begin with something much smaller, a belief, a possibility, a willingness to move forward despite uncertainty. Take the story of Abraham Lincoln. Before he became one of the most respected leaders in American history, his life was filled with hardship. He grew up in poverty. His early business ventures failed. He lost elections again and again. At times, it seemed that his ambitions were collapsing under the weight of repeated disappointment. But Lincoln refused to allow defeat to define his future. Instead of abandoning his purpose, he continued to move forward. Each loss became a lesson. Each setback became preparation. Years later, that same man would guide a nation through one of the most difficult periods in its history. His life stands as powerful evidence that perseverance often matters far more than early success. The world often celebrates the moment of victory, but the true story of success is written long before that moment arrives. It is written in the quiet hours when no one is watching. It is written in the early mornings when effort feels difficult. It is written in the repeated attempts that seem invisible to the world. Those moments shape the character required to achieve something meaningful. Many people believe that confidence must exist before action, but the opposite is usually true. Confidence grows through action. It grows through experience. It grows through the repeated decision to move forward despite uncertainty. Think about a child learning to walk. The first attempts are awkward. The steps are unsteady. The child falls again and again. But no one interprets those falls as failure. They are understood as part of the process. Each attempt strengthens the muscles. Each fall teaches balance. Each step builds the ability to move farther. Eventually, the child walks with ease, and later, perhaps even runs. Life follows the same principle. Progress rarely arrives instantly. Instead, it appears gradually. A small improvement today, a slightly better effort tomorrow, a new skill learned next week. Over time, those small advances begin to accumulate. What once seemed impossible slowly becomes achievable. But this transformation begins with a single action, the first step. For many people, the greatest obstacle is not difficulty, it is fear. Fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of discovering that their dreams may be larger than their current abilities. But those who achieve remarkable things eventually discover a powerful truth. Fear loses its power the moment action begins. When you move forward, uncertainty begins to shrink. Experience begins to replace doubt, and slowly the path ahead becomes clearer. Throughout history, the individuals who built extraordinary lives were rarely fearless. Instead, they learned to act in spite of fear. They understood that courage is not the absence of uncertainty. Courage is the decision that something else matters more. Imagine standing at the beginning of a long journey. The destination is far away.
The path is unfamiliar. You cannot see every step that lies ahead, but you can see the first step. And sometimes that is all required, because once the first step is taken, something remarkable happens. Momentum begins to build. Movement creates clarity. Effort reveals possibilities that were invisible before. Doors begin to open that once seemed locked. New connections appear. New ideas emerge. New strengths develop. In time, the person who once hesitated becomes someone capable of extraordinary things. But none of that transformation would exist without the courage to begin. Every person who has ever built something meaningful has faced that moment. The moment when the future depended on a single decision, the decision to act. Some turned away. They allowed fear to guide their choices. They postponed their ambitions until time quietly carried them elsewhere. But others chose differently. They stepped forward. They accepted uncertainty. They embraced the challenge of learning, growing, and improving. And through that decision, they began to shape a life that once seemed impossible. The most remarkable part of this story is that the same opportunity exists for every human being. You do not need perfect conditions. You do not need unlimited resources. You do not need the approval of everyone around you. What you need is far simpler: the courage to take the first step. Because the moment you begin, the process of transformation begins with you. And often, the greatest achievements in life are not the result of extraordinary talent. They are the result of ordinary people who decided to begin when others chose to wait.
There is a quiet truth that separates those who dream from those who achieve. It is not intelligence, it is not talent, and it is rarely the result of perfect opportunity. More often than not, the true difference lies in something far simpler: persistence. The willingness to continue when others have already decided to stop. At first glance, persistence may appear ordinary. It does not create the excitement of sudden success. It does not attract applause in its early stages. Instead, persistence often unfolds quietly. It lives in long hours of effort, in repeated attempts, in the determination to continue working even when the results seem invisible. Yet history shows that persistence possesses extraordinary power. Again and again, the individuals who eventually transform the world are those who refuse to abandon their purpose. Consider the story of James Watt, the inventor who would later revolutionize industry with his improvements to the steam engine. As a young mechanic, Watt spent countless hours studying the machines that powered early factories. At that time, steam engines were inefficient and unreliable. Many engineers believed that their limitations could never be overcome. But Watt was not satisfied with accepting the problem as permanent. He became obsessed with understanding how the machine worked. He studied its weaknesses. He experimented with improvements. Again and again his designs failed. Parts overheated. Pressure escaped. Mechanisms broke. Each attempt required patience and determination. Years passed before he finally discovered a method that dramatically improved the engine's efficiency. That single improvement changed the course of history. Factories became more productive. Transportation evolved. Entire industries expanded. What appeared to the world as a brilliant invention was actually the result of years of quiet persistence. This pattern appears in almost every field of human achievement. The world often sees the moment of success, but it rarely sees the thousands of attempts that came before it. Take the life of Henry Ford. Long before his name became associated with automobiles, Ford faced repeated disappointment. His early companies failed.
Investors doubted his vision. Critics believed that automobiles would never become practical machines for everyday people. But Ford believed something different. He believed that transportation should not be limited to the wealthy. He imagined a world where ordinary families could travel freely. Many people dismissed this idea as unrealistic. Cars were expensive, production was slow, manufacturing methods were inefficient. But Ford refused to abandon his vision. He studied the problem relentlessly. He experimented with new systems. Eventually, he introduced a revolutionary concept, the moving assembly line. By reorganizing the manufacturing process, Ford dramatically reduced the time required to build a car. Production increased, costs decreased, and suddenly automobiles became accessible to millions. What changed the world was not a moment of inspiration, it was persistence, the steady refusal to surrender to failure. Persistence transforms obstacles into teachers. Every challenge becomes a lesson, every mistake becomes information, every setback becomes preparation for the next attempt. Those who persist long enough eventually develop something that others lack: experience. They begin to understand problems more deeply. They discover solutions others overlooked. They gain strength that can only be built through effort. Meanwhile, those who give up early never reach that stage. They stop before progress begins to appear. Imagine a miner searching for gold. Day after day, he digs through layers of rock. The work is exhausting. The results are uncertain. At times, it may appear that his efforts are pointless. Many miners throughout history have abandoned their work just a few feet away from the richest veins of gold. The treasure was close, but their persistence ended too soon. Life often follows the same pattern. Success may be closer than it appears, but the final steps require endurance, and endurance is built through persistence. Consider the journey of Michael Faraday, one of the greatest scientists in history. Faraday was born into poverty. His formal education was extremely limited. As a young man, he worked as a bookbinder's apprentice. Day after day, he bound scientific books written by great scholars. Instead of merely assembling the pages, Faraday read them. He studied every idea. He became fascinated with the mysteries of electricity and magnetism. Eventually, he attended a lecture by the famous scientist Humphrey Davy. Inspired by what he heard, Faraday wrote detailed notes from the lecture and sent them to Davy along with a request for work. At first, nothing happened, but Faraday persisted. Eventually, he was offered a position as a laboratory assistant. The job was simple and often unglamorous. He cleaned equipment, prepared materials, organized experiments. But Faraday used every moment as an opportunity to learn. Over time, his persistence and curiosity transformed him into one of the greatest experimental scientists who ever lived. His discoveries laid the foundation for modern electrical technology, electric motors, generators, electromagnetic theory. All of these innovations trace their roots back to the work of a man who once bound books in a small shop. The lesson is powerful. Persistence allows ordinary beginnings to lead to extraordinary outcomes. But persistence requires a particular mindset. It requires the ability to view failure differently. Most people interpret failure as evidence that something cannot be done. Persistent individuals interpret failure as evidence that they are still learning. Each attempt carries valuable information. Each mistake moves them closer to understanding the problem. Thomas Edison once expressed this idea perfectly. When asked about the many unsuccessful attempts he made while developing the electric light, he explained that each attempt eliminated another incorrect solution. In other words, every failure brought him closer to success. Persistence transforms failure into progress. It removes the fear of trying. It replaces hesitation with curiosity.
The person who persists long enough eventually becomes difficult to defeat, because persistence creates something powerful: momentum. Once momentum begins to build, progress accelerates, skills improve, confidence grows, opportunities appear. People begin to notice the determination and dedication that persistence creates, and slowly, the individual who once struggled becomes someone capable of remarkable achievements. But persistence requires patience, it requires discipline, it requires the ability to continue even when results are not immediately visible. This is where many people stop. They work hard for a short time. When immediate success does not appear, they assume their efforts were wasted. But success often follows a different timeline. Many breakthroughs occur after long periods of quiet preparation. The effort accumulates, the experience builds, and then suddenly progress becomes visible. What once seemed impossible begins to unfold. The truth is simple. Persistence is not glamorous, it is not dramatic, but it is one of the most powerful forces in human life. It allows ordinary individuals to accomplish extraordinary things. It allows dreams to survive difficult moments, and it allows determination to overcome obstacles that once seemed insurmountable. Every great achievement in history has been built on the same foundation. Someone refused to give up. Someone continued when others stopped. Someone believed that another attempt was worth making. And through that decision, the impossible slowly became possible. Because in the end, persistence carries a quiet promise. If you continue long enough, if you learn from each attempt, if you refuse to abandon your purpose, the path forward eventually reveals itself.
Part 4. The Habit of Hard Work. There is a myth that quietly spreads through every generation. It is the idea that success belongs only to the naturally gifted, that extraordinary achievement is reserved for people born with unusual talent, that the rest of the world can only admire from a distance. But history tells a very different story. Again and again, the individuals who build remarkable lives are not necessarily the most talented. They are the most disciplined. They are the ones who develop a powerful habit, the habit of hard work. Hard work is rarely glamorous. It does not always produce immediate rewards. It often requires effort long before the results become visible. But it possesses a unique power. Hard work transforms potential into reality. A dream without effort remains only an idea. But when effort is applied consistently, ideas begin to take shape. Skills begin to grow. Progress begins to appear. Over time, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. Consider the life of Andrew Carnegie, one of the most influential industrial leaders in history. Carnegie was not born into wealth. His childhood was marked by poverty and hardship. His family immigrated in search of opportunity, arriving in a new country with very little. At the age of 13, Carnegie began working in a factory. His days were long, the work was exhausting, but instead of viewing his circumstances as permanent, he treated them as the beginning of a journey. Carnegie became known for his relentless work ethic. He studied constantly. He observed how businesses operated. He learned from every position he held. Step by step, he climbed upward, from factory worker to telegraph operator to railroad manager to industrial entrepreneur. Eventually, he built one of the largest steel companies in the world. His success did not appear overnight. It was the result of years of disciplined effort. Hard work has a remarkable effect on the human mind. When a person commits fully to a task, something begins to change. Abilities improve. Confidence grows. New opportunities appear. People begin to trust the individual who consistently delivers effort and reliability. This principle has shaped countless success stories. Take the example of Benjamin Franklin. Franklin's early life was far from privileged. He was born into a large family with limited resources. His formal education lasted only a few years. But Franklin possessed a powerful habit. He worked tirelessly to improve himself. He read constantly. He practiced writing every day. He studied science, philosophy, and politics. Franklin believed that personal growth required daily effort. He even designed a system to track his habits and character traits. Each day he evaluated his actions and looked for ways to improve. Over time, that commitment transformed him. He became a writer, scientist, inventor, diplomat, and one of the most respected thinkers of his era. What made Franklin extraordinary was not natural genius alone. It was disciplined effort, the willingness to work steadily toward improvement. Hard work also creates resilience. When a person becomes accustomed to effort, challenges lose much of their intimidation. Difficult tasks become opportunities for growth. Obstacles become puzzles to solve rather than barriers to fear. Imagine two individuals facing the same challenge. One has spent years avoiding effort. The other has developed the habit of consistent work. Which one will persevere longer? Which one will adapt more quickly? Which one will ultimately succeed? The answer becomes obvious. Hard work builds strength. Not only physical strength, but mental strength. It trains the mind to remain focused. It teaches patience. It develops endurance. And perhaps most importantly, it builds self-respect. A person who knows they have given their best effort carries a quiet confidence. They know they can face difficult tasks because they have done so before. Many people search for shortcuts to success. They hope to find easier paths, faster solutions, quicker rewards. But shortcuts rarely produce lasting achievement. Real success is built on a foundation of consistent effort. Consider the craftsmen of earlier centuries. A master carpenter or sculptor did not develop skill overnight. Years of practice were required. Each project improved their ability. Each mistake refined their technique. Eventually, their work reached a level of excellence that seemed effortless. But behind that apparent ease were thousands of hours of practice. The same principle applies to every field. Athletes train relentlessly. Scientists conduct countless experiments. Writers produce drafts and revisions before completing a masterpiece. Excellence is not an accident. It is the natural result of repeated effort. Hard work also reveals character. When circumstances become difficult, effort becomes the measure of determination. Some people retreat when work becomes challenging. Others move forward with greater intensity. Those who embrace effort discover something powerful. Work itself becomes rewarding. The process of improvement becomes deeply satisfying. Each new skill learned creates momentum. Each completed task builds confidence. Each challenge overcome strengthens determination. Over time, the individual who once struggled begins to excel. The person who once doubted themselves begins to trust their abilities. This transformation does not occur through luck. It occurs through effort. Hard work also has a remarkable influence on opportunity. People naturally respect and trust individuals who demonstrate dedication. Employers notice them. Mentors support them. Colleagues rely on them. Doors begin to open. Opportunities appear that were once hidden, not because of chance, but because effort creates reputation. A reputation for reliability, for commitment, for perseverance. and reputation is one of the most valuable assets a person can build. But perhaps the most important benefit of hard work is the transformation that occurs within the individual. Through effort, people discover strengths they never knew they possessed. They develop discipline. They learn patience. They gain the confidence that comes from overcoming challenges. Over time, the person who once seemed ordinary becomes capable of extraordinary accomplishments. The truth is simple. The world rarely rewards potential alone. It rewards effort. Talent may create opportunity, but hard work turns opportunity into achievement. And the habit of hard work is available to anyone. It does not require special privilege. It does not depend on perfect circumstances. It begins with a simple decision. The decision to give your best effort today, then again tomorrow, and again the next day. Because when effort becomes a habit, something remarkable begins to happen. Progress becomes inevitable. Dreams begin to move closer, and the future slowly begins to reflect the determination of the person who refused to remain idle. Hard work, practiced daily, has the power to transform an ordinary life into extraordinary one.
Part 5. The Strength of Character. There is something far more powerful than talent, something deeper than intelligence, something that determines whether a person will rise or slowly fade into the background of life. That force is character. Character is not something people are born with. It is something they build. Day by day, choice by choice, action by action. It reveals itself not in moments of comfort, but in moments of difficulty. When circumstances are easy, almost anyone can appear confident and capable. But when obstacles appear, when pressure rises, when the path forward becomes uncertain, that is when character begins to show. History is filled with examples of individuals whose strength of character transformed their lives. Consider the story of George Washington. Before he became the first president of the United States, Washington faced extraordinary challenges. During the early days of the American struggle for independence, the army under his command was poorly equipped. Supplies were scarce. Soldiers lacked proper clothing and food. Morale was dangerously low. Many believed that defeat was inevitable. Yet Washington possessed something that inspired those around him, a calm, steady strength. He did not surrender to despair. He did not abandon responsibility when the situation became difficult. Instead, he remained firm. He continued leading with patience, discipline, and determination. His character became a source of confidence for the entire army. Over time, that leadership helped transform a struggling force into one capable of achieving victory. The lesson is powerful. Character creates trust. People follow individuals whose actions demonstrate integrity and reliability. Without character, talent can quickly become dangerous. Intelligence without integrity can lead to selfish decisions. Skill without honesty can destroy reputations. But when strong character guides ability, extraordinary achievements become possible. Character is also revealed through honesty. Honesty may appear simple, yet it requires courage. The temptation to take shortcuts often appears during moments of pressure. But those who build lasting success understand something important. Trust is more valuable than temporary advantage. Consider the story often told about Abraham Lincoln during his early years. As a young store clerk, Lincoln once discovered that he had accidentally overcharged a customer by a few cents. The amount was small. No one would likely have noticed. But Lincoln believed that honesty was non-negotiable.
So, after closing the store for the evening, he walked several miles to return the money. The act may seem insignificant, yet it reveals something powerful. Character is not built through grand gestures alone. It is built through small decisions made consistently. Each time a person chooses honesty over convenience, character grows stronger. Each time a person chooses responsibility over excuses, character becomes deeper. And those small choices gradually shape the direction of a life. Character also includes responsibility, the ability to accept ownership of one's actions. Many people blame circumstances when things go wrong. They blame the economy. They blame other people. They blame bad luck. But individuals with strong character look inward first. They ask what they can improve, what they can learn, what they can do differently next time. This mindset creates growth. Instead of remaining trapped in frustration, they move forward with greater understanding. Responsibility transforms failure into opportunity. Consider the life of Theodore Roosevelt. As a young boy, Roosevelt suffered from severe asthma. He was physically weak and frequently ill. Doctors believed that his health would limit what he could accomplish in life. But Roosevelt refused to accept that limitation. Encouraged by his father, he began a rigorous program of physical training. He exercised daily. He challenged his body to grow stronger. Gradually, the frail boy became a vigorous and energetic man. His determination did not stop with physical strength. He carried that same energy into every aspect of his life. He became a soldier, a writer, a reformer, and eventually president. His life demonstrated how character can overcome even physical limitations. But character is also tested through adversity. There are moments when the right decision is also the difficult one, moments when integrity requires sacrifice. Those are the moments that truly define a person's character. In business, in leadership, and in personal relationships, people watch actions carefully. They notice consistency. They observe whether someone keeps promises. They recognize whether someone stands by their principles. Reputation grows from these observations, and reputation, once established, becomes one of the most powerful forces in life. A person known for honesty and reliability attracts opportunity. People want to work with them, trust them, support them. But reputation cannot be purchased. It must be earned, and it is earned through character. Character is also included courage, not the loud courage that seeks attention, but the quiet courage that stands firm in moments of difficulty, the courage to speak truth, the courage to defend what is right, the courage to continue moving forward when circumstances become challenging. Every generation produces individuals whose character inspires others. They remind the world that strength does not always appear in dramatic form. Often it appears quietly, in discipline, in integrity, in responsibility, in the consistent commitment to do what is right. And over time, those qualities shape a life that commands respect. The truth is simple. Talent may open the door. Opportunity may create the path, but character determines how far a person will travel. Without character, success is fragile. With character, success becomes sustainable, because strong character builds something deeper than achievement. It builds trust, it builds respect, and most importantly, it builds the inner strength required to face whatever challenges the future may bring. For anyone seeking a meaningful life, the lesson is clear. Success is not only measured by what you achieve, it is measured by the kind of person you become while achieving it. And when strong character guides ambition, success becomes more than personal gain. It becomes a source of inspiration for everyone who witnesses it.
There is a force that quietly shapes the direction of every human life. It cannot be seen, it cannot be touched, Yet its influence is powerful enough to determine whether a person advances toward success or retreats into doubt. That force is belief. More specifically, belief in oneself. Self-belief is the invisible engine behind achievement. Before any invention is created, before any business is built, before any dream becomes reality, someone must first believe that it is possible. Without that belief, action never begins. The mind quietly rejects opportunities before they even appear. Doubt replaces curiosity. Fear replaces ambition. But when belief exists, something remarkable begins to happen. Possibility expands. The individual becomes willing to attempt what others avoid. They become willing to endure temporary failure in pursuit of long-term success. Self-belief does not mean arrogance. It does not mean ignoring difficulties. Instead, it means trusting that effort and persistence can eventually overcome those difficulties. Consider the story of Thomas Edison. As a young boy, Edison struggled in school. Teachers considered him slow. Some believed he lacked the ability to learn in the traditional classroom. Eventually, his mother removed him from school and began teaching him at home. She believed in his potential even when others did not. That belief had a profound influence on Edison. It encouraged his curiosity. It allowed him to experiment. It gave him the confidence to explore ideas without fear of judgment. Edison eventually became one of the most prolific inventors in history. His work led to practical electric lighting, improvements in communication technology, and countless other innovations. But his journey was not easy. He conducted thousands of experiments that did not produce the results he expected. Many people would have abandoned the effort long before success appeared. But Edison possessed an unshakable belief in the value of his work. That belief gave him the patience to continue experimenting, and eventually those experiments changed the modern world. Self-belief often begins with a simple decision, the decision to trust one's potential even before proof exists. Consider the early career of Walt Disney. Before building one of the most influential entertainment companies in history, Disney experienced repeated setbacks. His early animation studio went bankrupt. Some critics told him that his ideas lacked originality. At one point, he struggled financially while trying to develop a new form of animated storytelling. Yet Disney believed deeply in the power of imagination. He believed that audiences would respond to characters filled with personality and emotion. That belief led him to continue creating even during difficult times. Eventually, he introduced a character that would become one of the most recognized figures in entertainment history, Mickey Mouse. From that moment forward, Disney's vision expanded into films, theme parks, and creative storytelling that inspired generations. But it all began with belief, the belief that imagination could create something meaningful. Self-belief has a powerful influence on human behavior. When people believe they are capable of improvement, they approach challenges differently. Instead of avoiding difficulty, they view it as a chance to grow. Instead of fearing mistakes, they treat mistakes as valuable lessons. This mindset creates progress. Confidence grows through experience. Each challenge overcome strengthens belief. Each achievement reinforces the idea that success is possible. But belief must also be supported by effort. Believing in success without taking action produces only wishful thinking. True self-belief inspires work. It motivates learning. It encourages persistence. Consider the life of Helen Keller. As a child, Keller lost both her sight and hearing due to illness. For many, such circumstances would appear overwhelming. Communication seemed almost impossible. Education appeared out of reach. Yet Keller possessed extraordinary determination. With the guidance of her teacher, Anne Sullivan, she began to learn language through touch.
Slowly, by word, she discovered how to communicate with the world. Her progress required immense patience and belief. But Keller refused to accept limitations imposed by circumstance. Eventually, she became an author, speaker, and advocate for people with disabilities. Her life demonstrated something powerful. Belief can exist even in the face of immense obstacles. And when belief is combined with determination, extraordinary things become possible. Self-belief also influences how others perceive us. People are naturally drawn to confidence. They trust individuals who believe in their goals. Confidence communicates clarity and determination. It suggests that the individual is committed to their vision. This does not mean pretending to be fearless. Everyone experiences doubt at times. Even the most successful individuals have moments of uncertainty. The difference lies in how they respond. Instead of allowing doubt to control their actions, they move forward despite it. They understand that confidence grows through action. The more they attempt, the stronger their belief becomes. Over time, that belief begins to shape reality. Opportunities appear, skills develop, progress accelerates. What once seemed uncertain becomes achievable. But perhaps the most important effect of self-belief is internal. It changes how a person sees themselves. Instead of feeling limited by circumstance, they begin to see possibility. Instead of accepting the expectations of others, they define their own potential. This transformation can change the entire direction of a life. Many of the greatest achievements in history began as ideas that others dismissed. People laughed, they doubted, they said it could not be done. But someone believed otherwise. Someone trusted that persistence and effort would eventually prove the idea possible, and that belief carried them forward. The truth is simple. Every human being possesses untapped potential, abilities that have not yet been developed, strengths that have not yet been discovered, ideas that have not yet been explored. Self-belief acts as the key to unlock those possibilities. It encourages experimentation. It fuels perseverance. It creates the courage to attempt what others fear. Without belief, potential remains hidden. With belief, potential begins to emerge. And once that process begins, the possibilities become limitless. Because the moment a person truly believes they can grow, improve, and succeed, they have already taken the first step toward making that belief a reality.
Part 7. The Influence of Environment. Every human being is shaped by the environment in which they live. The ideas we hear, the people we spend time with, the conversations we participate in, the habits we observe, all of these elements quietly influence the direction of our thoughts and actions. Many people believe that success or failure depends entirely on personal ability. But the truth is more complex. Environment plays a powerful role in shaping human potential. A supportive environment can inspire growth. A negative environment can quietly limit ambition. This is why successful individuals are often careful about the influences that surround them. They understand that the mind absorbs ideas constantly. Whether we realize it or not, the attitudes and expectations of those around us begin to affect our own thinking. Consider a young student growing up in two different environments. In one environment, people constantly say that success is difficult and unlikely. They speak about limitations, they focus on problems, they expect failure. Over time, the student begins to adopt those beliefs. Ambition weakens, confidence fades, the future begins to look smaller. Now imagine a different environment. In this environment, people encourage learning. They celebrate effort. They discuss possibilities. They believe that improvement is always possible.
In such surroundings, the student's mindset changes. Curiosity grows, confidence develops, goals begin to expand. The difference between these two outcomes is not intelligence, it is environment. History provides many examples of individuals whose environments shaped their success. Take the life of Thomas Edison once again. While his natural curiosity was important, his development was greatly influenced by the encouragement he received from his mother. She recognized his interest in learning. Instead of discouraging his endless questions, she supported them. She provided books. She allowed him to experiment. That environment gave Edison the freedom to explore ideas without fear of criticism. As a result, his curiosity flourished. His mind remained open to discovery. Another example can be seen in the life of Alexander Graham Bell. Bell grew up in a family deeply interested in the science of sound and communication. His father and grandfather both studied speech and language. From a young age, Bell was surrounded by conversations about communication, sound, and human speech. This environment naturally influenced his interests. Eventually, those interests led him to develop one of the most transformative inventions in modern history, the telephone. Bell's invention was not created in isolation. It grew from years of exposure to ideas that shaped his thinking. This illustrates an important principle. The ideas we encounter regularly begin to shape our imagination. They influence what we believe is possible. But environment is not limited to people. Books also create powerful environments for the mind. A single book can introduce new ideas. It can expand perspective. It can inspire ambition. Many successful individuals have described books as mentors that guided their thinking. Consider the life of Abraham Lincoln. As a young man, Lincoln had very limited access to formal education, but he possessed a deep desire to learn. Whenever he found a book, he studied it carefully. He read by candlelight late into the night. Through those books, he encountered ideas about law, leadership, and philosophy. Those ideas helped shape the thinking of a man who would later guide a nation through one of its most difficult periods. Books became part of his environment. They expanded his mind beyond the limits of his circumstances. But environment can also include the physical spaces we occupy. A cluttered and chaotic environment often leads to scattered thinking. A calm and organized space encourages focus and clarity. Many writers, inventors, and thinkers throughout history have carefully designed their workspaces to support concentration. They understood that surroundings influence productivity. The people we choose as companions may be the most influential part of our environment. Human beings naturally adopt the habits and attitudes of those around them. Spend enough time with individuals who value growth, and growth becomes natural. Spend enough time with individuals who complain constantly, and negativity begins to feel normal. This is why many successful individuals intentionally seek relationships that encourage progress. They look for mentors. They build networks of people who share similar goals. They surround themselves with individuals who challenge them to improve. A famous example of this principle can be found in the collaboration between Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla during the early days of electrical innovation. Although their relationship later became complicated, their work existed within a powerful environment of experimentation and technological discovery. Laboratories filled with ideas, conversations about possibility, experiments that pushed the boundaries of science. Such environments accelerate progress. Ideas grow faster when they are shared, discussed, and challenged. But one important truth must be remembered. environment is not always chosen for us. Many people begin life in circumstances that appear limiting. They may not initially have access to supportive communities or inspiring surroundings. Yet history shows that determined individuals can gradually reshape their environment. They seek new knowledge. They connect with new people. They expose themselves to ideas that expand their thinking. Over time, the environment begins to change. New opportunities appear. New influences enter their lives, and their mindset evolves accordingly. In today's world, access to positive influences is greater than ever before. Through books, education, and communication, individuals can build environments filled with knowledge and inspiration. The key is intentional choice, choosing what ideas to listen to, choosing which people to learn from, choosing what information enters the mind. Because the mind is like a garden. Whatever seeds are planted there will eventually grow. If the seeds are negative beliefs, fear, and doubt, those qualities will multiply. But if the seeds are curiosity, ambition, and discipline, those qualities will flourish. Environment determines which seeds are planted, and those seeds ultimately shape the direction of a life. For anyone seeking growth, the lesson is clear. Choose your environment. Surround yourself with ideas that expand your thinking. Spend time with individuals who encourage improvement. Create spaces that support focus and creativity. Because when the environment supports progress, personal transformation becomes far more likely. And the individual who intentionally shapes their environment begins to shape their future as well.
Part 8. Learning from failure. Failure is one of the most misunderstood experiences in human life. Most people fear it. They avoid it. They treat it as evidence that something has gone terribly wrong. Yet throughout history, failure has often been the foundation of remarkable success. The difference lies in how people respond to it. For some, failure becomes the end of the journey. For others, it becomes the beginning of wisdom. Every meaningful achievement carries with it a series of unsuccessful attempts, experiments that did not work, plans that did not succeed, ideas that needed refinement. But each of these experiences provides information, and information leads to improvement. Consider the journey of Thomas Edison once again. When he began working on the electric light bulb, the challenge seemed enormous. Scientists had long attempted to produce a reliable electric light. Many had tried, many had failed. Edison approached the problem differently. Instead of fearing failure, he treated each unsuccessful experiment as valuable data. If one material burned too quickly, he learned from it. If another filament broke under heat, he adjusted his approach. He and his team conducted thousands of experiments before discovering the combination that worked. When asked about the many unsuccessful attempts, Edison famously explained that he had not failed. He had simply discovered thousands of ways that did not work. That perspective transformed failure into progress. Each experiment brought him closer to the solution. Eventually, the electric light bulb became one of the most important inventions in modern history. But behind that achievement stood a mountain of failed attempts. Failure also played a significant role in the life of Henry Ford. Before establishing a successful automobile company, Ford experienced multiple business failures. Investors lost confidence, early companies collapsed, financial setbacks appeared repeatedly. Many people would have concluded that the automobile industry was not the right path. But Ford refused to accept defeat as permanent. Instead, he studied each failure carefully. He analyzed what had gone wrong. He improved his understanding of manufacturing, engineering, and business strategy. With every attempt, his knowledge expanded.
Eventually, that experience allowed him to build a company that transformed transportation. Failure had become a teacher. The problem is that most people view failure emotionally. They attach it to their identity. Instead of saying, "This attempt did not work," they say, "I am not capable." That shift in perspective can destroy motivation. But the truth is simple. Failure is an event. It is not a definition of who you are. It is a moment in time, a moment filled with lessons that can shape future success. Some of the greatest discoveries in science emerged from unexpected mistakes. Consider the story of Alexander Fleming. In 1928, Fleming was studying bacteria in his laboratory. At one point, he noticed that a petri dish had been contaminated by mold. Normally, such contamination would ruin the experiment, but Fleming observed something unusual. Around the mold, the bacteria were dying. Instead of discarding the dish, he investigated further. That accidental observation eventually led to the discovery of penicillin, one of the most important medical breakthroughs in history. What appeared to be a failed experiment became a life-saving discovery. Failure often carries hidden opportunities, but those opportunities can only be discovered by individuals willing to look deeper. Another important lesson about failure is that it builds resilience. When people experience setbacks and continue moving forward, their confidence grows stronger. They realize that failure is survivable. They discover that mistakes do not destroy their future. Instead, mistakes create experience, and experience creates wisdom. Athletes understand this principle well. Even the greatest champions lose competitions. They miss opportunities. They face defeat. But those experiences teach them how to improve. They analyze their performance. They refine their training. They return stronger and more prepared. In many ways, failure is a form of training. It forces the mind to adapt. It reveals weaknesses that need improvement. It encourages creativity in finding new solutions. The most successful individuals develop a healthy relationship with failure. They do not seek it intentionally, but they do not fear it either. They accept it as part of the journey. Consider the persistence of Walt Disney. Before building his famous entertainment empire, Disney faced numerous setbacks. His early animation studio failed financially. Some critics rejected his ideas. He struggled to find support for projects that seemed unusual at the time. Yet Disney remained committed to his creative vision. Each setback encouraged him to refine his approach. Each challenge strengthened his determination. Eventually, his persistence produced films and characters that captured the imagination of audiences around the world. Failure had not stopped him, it had prepared him. The truth is that failure is often a sign of progress. It means that someone is attempting something difficult. It means they are pushing beyond their comfort zone. It means they are exploring possibilities that others may avoid. Those who never fail are often those who never attempt anything challenging. But those who are willing to risk failure gain something far more valuable: growth. Because every attempt increases knowledge, every mistake builds experience, and every lesson learned moves the individual closer to mastery. The path to success is rarely straight. It curves through uncertainty. It includes setbacks. It demands patience. But those who learn from failure eventually develop something powerful: wisdom. They begin to recognize patterns. They understand how to adjust strategies. They gain the confidence that comes from experience. And over time, that wisdom transforms failure into one of the most valuable teachers in life. For anyone pursuing a meaningful goal, the lesson is clear. Failure is not the enemy. Giving up is. If failure is approached with curiosity and determination, it becomes a stepping stone toward success. Each attempt becomes a lesson, each lesson becomes progress, and progress eventually leads to achievement. because in the long journey of success, failure is not the opposite of success. It is often the path that leads directly toward it.
Part 9. The Power of Vision. Every great achievement begins long before the results become visible. It begins with an idea, a picture in the mind, a vision of something that does not yet exist. Vision is one of the most powerful forces in human progress. It allows individuals to imagine possibilities beyond the present moment. While others see limitations, the person with vision sees opportunity. While others accept the world as it is, the visionary imagines how it could become. Throughout history, progress has always started with someone who dared to see beyond current reality. Consider the dream of human flight. For centuries, people believed that flying was impossible. The sky belonged only to birds. Human beings were meant to remain on the ground. Yet two brothers refused to accept that belief. Wilbur Wright and Orville Wright grew up fascinated by the idea of flight. They studied birds. They examined earlier experiments with gliders. They read everything they could find about aerodynamics. Most importantly, they imagined a future in which humans could travel through the air. At the time, many experts believed that controlled flight was impossible. But the Wright brothers possessed something stronger than doubt. They possessed vision. Working in a small bicycle shop, they conducted experiments. They built gliders. They tested designs repeatedly. Each attempt brought new challenges, yet their vision remained clear. On a cold morning in 1903, that vision finally became reality. Their aircraft lifted from the ground and flew under its own power. The age of aviation had begun. What seemed impossible became possible because someone imagined it first. Vision works in the same way for individuals. Before a person builds a successful career, before they create meaningful work, before they transform their circumstances, they must first imagine a different future. Without vision, life becomes reactive. People simply respond to events as they happen. But with vision, life becomes intentional. Actions begin to follow a clear direction. Goals become meaningful. Effort becomes purposeful. Vision also provides motivation during difficult times. When challenges appear, the vision reminds the individual why they began. It acts like a compass guiding them forward. Consider the story of Martin Luther King, Jr. During one of the most challenging periods in American history, King spoke about a future that many people struggled to imagine. A future built on equality, justice, and dignity for all people. His famous speech during the March on Washington was not simply a political statement. It was an expression of vision, a vision powerful enough to inspire millions. Those words helped energize a movement that eventually led to profound social change. Vision has the ability to unite people. When individuals share a compelling vision, they begin working together towards a common goal. Ideas grow stronger when many minds contribute to them, and movements often begin with a single person who dares to imagine something different. Vision also shapes personal ambition. When people clearly imagine the life they want to build, their decisions begin to align with that image. Daily habits begin to change. Time is used more carefully. Energy is directed towards meaningful goals. Without vision, effort can become scattered. People may work hard but lack direction. With vision,
effort becomes focused. Every step moves closer to a defined future. One of the most remarkable examples of visionary thinking can be found in the work of Elon Musk. From an early stage in his career, Musk spoke openly about ambitious ideas: electric vehicles, reusable rockets, human settlement on other planets. At the time, many people viewed these goals as unrealistic. But Musk's companies continued developing technologies that gradually transformed those ideas into reality. Through companies like Tesla and SpaceX, the vision of sustainable energy and advanced space exploration moved from imagination to engineering. Whether one agrees with every detail of his ambitions or not, the example illustrates something important. Vision pushes boundaries. It expands what people believe is possible. Vision also strengthens resilience. When individuals are guided by a meaningful vision, temporary obstacles lose their power to discourage them. Setbacks become part of the process. The destination remains more important than the difficulty of the journey. But vision alone is not enough. It must be combined with action. A vision without effort remains a dream. But when vision inspires consistent action, remarkable progress becomes possible. The most successful individuals balance imagination with discipline. They allow themselves to dream boldly, but they also work patiently to bring those dreams into reality. They break large visions into smaller goals. They focus on daily progress. They adjust their strategies when necessary. Over time, the distance between imagination and reality begins to shrink. Eventually, what once existed only in the mind becomes part of the real world. The cities we live in, the technologies we use, the institutions that shape society, all began as visions in someone's mind. Someone imagined a possibility. Someone believed that the future could be different, and that belief inspired action. For individuals seeking a meaningful life, vision provides direction. It answers an essential question: where am I going? Without that answer, life can drift without purpose. But when a person develops a clear vision of the future they wish to create, every decision becomes more intentional. Every effort gains meaning. Every challenge becomes part of a larger story. Because vision does something powerful. It pulls the future into the present. It allows individuals to act today in service of a better tomorrow. And those who dare to imagine boldly often become the very people who shape the future for everyone else.
Part 10. The Journey of Continuous Growth. Success is often misunderstood as a final destination. People imagine that one day they will arrive at a place where all effort ends, a moment where achievement is complete and nothing more is required. But the truth is very different. Success is not a destination, it is a journey, a continuous process of growth, learning, and improvement. The individuals who accomplish the most in life rarely stop evolving. Instead, they treat every achievement as a new beginning. Every lesson becomes preparation for the next challenge. Every experience becomes an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and more capable. Continuous growth is the foundation of long-term success. Without growth, progress eventually slows. Skills become outdated. Ideas lose their relevance. But those who remain curious and adaptable continue moving forward. Consider the remarkable life of Leonardo da Vinci. Although many people remember him for his masterpieces like the Mona Lisa, his talents extended far beyond painting. Da Vinci studied anatomy, engineering,
architecture, mathematics, and natural science. He constantly explored new ideas. His notebooks contained sketches of flying machines, scientific observations, and creative concepts centuries ahead of their time. What made Da Vinci extraordinary was not only his talent, but his endless curiosity. He never stopped learning. He never believed that knowledge was complete. His mind remained open to discovery throughout his entire life. That mindset of continuous growth allowed him to influence art, science, and engineering in ways that still inspire people today. Growth requires curiosity, the willingness to ask questions, to explore unfamiliar ideas, to challenge existing assumptions. Curiosity keeps the mind active. It encourages discovery. It transforms ordinary experiences into opportunities for learning. Many successful individuals maintain this curiosity throughout their lives. Take the example of Albert Einstein. Even after developing the groundbreaking theory of relativity, Einstein continued questioning the mysteries of the universe. He remained fascinated by physics. He pursued deeper understanding. His curiosity never faded. This desire to keep learning allowed him to remain one of the most influential thinkers in scientific history. Growth requires humility, the recognition that there is always more to learn. Some people become comfortable once they achieve a certain level of success. They stop seeking improvement. They rely on past accomplishments. But those who truly grow understand that knowledge evolves. New discoveries appear. New skills become valuable. New perspectives emerge. Remaining humble allows individuals to adapt. It allows them to listen, learn, and refine their understanding. Another important aspect of growth is reflection, taking time to evaluate experiences, asking important questions. What worked well? What could be improved? What lessons can be applied in the future? Reflection transforms experience into wisdom. Without reflection, experiences simply pass by, but when individuals pause to examine their actions and results, deeper understanding develops. This process gradually improves decision-making, it strengthens judgment, and it helps prevent repeating the same mistakes. Continuous growth also involves expanding one's abilities, learning new skills, exploring new disciplines, developing talents that may have remained hidden. Consider the life of Benjamin Franklin once again. Franklin refused to limit himself to a single role. Throughout his life, he was a writer, inventor, diplomat, scientist, and political thinker. He constantly expanded his knowledge and abilities. His curiosity pushed him into new areas of learning. As a result, his influence extended across multiple fields. Growth multiplies opportunity. The more a person learns, the more connections they begin to see. Ideas from one field inspire breakthroughs in another. Knowledge becomes a network of possibilities. Continuous growth also strengthens resilience. When individuals remain learners, they adapt more easily to change. They view unfamiliar situations as opportunities rather than threats. This mindset is particularly important in a world that evolves rapidly. Technologies change, industries transform, new challenges appear. Those who continue learning remain prepared. They adapt, they innovate, they move forward while others struggle to adjust. But perhaps the most important benefit of continuous growth is the transformation of the individual. Over time, knowledge deepens, skills improve, perspective broadens. The person who once began with uncertainty gradually becomes capable of guiding others. They become mentors, teachers, leaders. Their experience becomes a source of inspiration for those beginning their own journeys. And so the cycle of growth continues. One generation learns from the previous one. New ideas emerge. Progress continues. The journey of growth never truly ends. Every stage of life offers new lessons, new opportunities for discovery, new chances to expand understanding. For anyone seeking a meaningful life, the message is clear. Never stop learning. Never stop exploring. Never allow comfort to replace curiosity, because the greatest achievements are rarely created by individuals who believe they have learned enough. They are created by individuals who remain students of life, people who wake each day with a simple question: what can I learn today? And as that question continues to guide their actions, growth becomes inevitable. The mind expands, the possibilities multiply, and the journey of improvement continues far beyond any single moment of success. In the end, the most fulfilling lives are not defined only by what was achieved. They are defined by how much the individual grew along the way. Because growth is the true measure of progress, and those who dedicate themselves to continuous learning discover that the journey itself becomes the greatest reward of all.